Now this one's called the CPI and the shopping basket and inflation. So quite a lot of titles there actually going on there. So let's pop the title up there for you. Let's see how far we can go up here on the board. That's fine. So we're talking about the CPI, of course, the Consumer Price Index. We're talking about inflation, which is what this is about. And I'm talking about the shopping basket because I read some really interesting stuff at the weekend about the shopping basket. Now, a lot of people ask me about inflation. Inflation is a key thing in mortgage advising, in doing your CMAP examinations. You've got to understand inflation. It affects what we do, probably more than anything else at the end of the day. Now, the CPI is the one we use now. That's the one that the government used to measure inflation. There is the old RPI, which is the old one now. It's been phased out. CPI is a much more advanced one. You've also got CPIH, which sounds like a rap song, doesn't it? CPIH, and that includes housing costs, which is rent, mortgage, council tax, that sort of thing. Anyway, you probably knew that, didn't you? Because you're up to date on these things. But I was reading about the basket, because what happens, as you can appreciate, to measure inflation is government departments actually have this fictitious basket of goods and services that are bought and sold in the UK. And what they do, they have a lot of people that do this, the civil servant types, and they actually measure almost 2,000 or so of these items. For example, computers, whatever it is, goods and services. They measure 180,000 price points around the UK, and they measure, apparently, was it 720 different goods and services. And what they do, they just see how much they go up or down in price, that's all. They look at different price points. So they'll look at the internet, they'll look at the phone call sales, they'll look at shops, if we ever have those things again. So they look at one good, for example, that's purchased on, say, Amazon or by phone or at a local garden centre, and they'll compare the prices. So it's a very accurate way of assessing how prices are going up or down, thus measuring inflation. And it makes sense at the end of the day. That's how it works, isn't it? So how does it work then? Well, we're looking at people's buying habits. We're looking at trends. We're looking at how things change all the time. And what's really interesting, what I've picked up recently, is the basket of goods. And I've got here what's gone into the basket recently, what's gone out. Because the things that we buy and sell, I mean, the 720 goods and services that the basket has, do change as life goes on. I mean, recently, for example, couscous has come in to the basket. Couscous, which is Waitrose land, isn't it? But don't please write to me and complain or email if you shop at Waitrose. But you know, couscous is known for that kind of thing, isn't it? You know, rice is still there, but couscous has come in as well. Apparently, coffee sachets have come in as well recently. Coffee sachets. The reason behind that one is that people do buy coffee granules. Of course they do, and they have coffee machines, but most people buy coffee in sachets now. You know, your lattes, your nice coffees. Sachets have come into being. What I like is loungewear, men's loungewear. Because that's the lockdown, isn't it? People are wearing tracksuit bottoms or loungewear now rather than suits and ties. What's gone out recently? Well, white chocolate went out apparently recently. People don't buy much white chocolate. You know, the Milky Bar Kid kind of stuff, you know, is gone because it's not trendy anymore. Because that's the point. They have to keep up to date with what people are buying and selling to measure a proper inflation. Ground coffee, of course, as I mentioned to you, has gone out. So ground coffee, actually I get ground coffee, I still buy my beans, but it's not as probably the younger generation buy the sachets with you know, your skinny lattes with oat milk and all those sort of good things, and that's totally fine. Shows how things are changing, doesn't it? The other one that's gone out is the staff restaurant sandwich. There we are. The staff restaurant sandwich has gone out because people aren't in staff restaurants anymore. And if they do, they're not eating staff restaurant sandwiches because they're a bit posher now, aren't they? Axminster carpets have gone out as well. Whatever an Axminster carpet is. Hand gel has come in because that, again, is something that we're buying lots of now. So they're measuring the prices of hand gel. And home weights as well. You know, your dumbbells are coming. I bought a 7 kilo or an 8 kilo dumbbell. We've got a gym upstairs, so I've got a 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 kilo dumbbells. They're blooming expensive, which shows you, of course, that prices are rising. And that's the last thought to leave you with, because things are starting to trickle upwards. Prices are going up left, right and centre. I predicted this because we've got a bit of a supply shock at the moment with this this kind of recession, because we are in a recession. Theoretically, because the government have kept the economy ticking over. They've kept us on aspect as such. They've kept us frozen with all the furlough payments, etc., and all the money, all the grants. So when we come out of all of this, which we are because we're all getting jabbed, when we come out of this, then the economy will boom. Demand is massive at the moment. There's pent up demand, there's money everywhere. But their supply of goods and services is restricted, and there's supply shocks. So take, for example, petrol. That's going up in price now as well because the demand is starting to pick up again. We're getting some decking done to our back garden, and trying to get a builder is very difficult anyway. When you do get one that's good, the prices are high and they can pretty much charge what they want because there's not that many builders or landscape architects around to service the need and the demand. Therefore prices start to go up. Agents' fees, estate agents now are really busy again. You don't get many deals on estate agency fees anymore. You don't get sub 1% anymore, do you? It's all 1.5% because they can, you see, because they're in demand. Food is going up in price now because of exporting and importing now, issues around Brexit, whatever you want to call it. Inflation is going up. CPI is starting to rise. Everyone's talking about it. Even the monetarists are talking about M2, which is a measure of money supply in an economy, is starting to rise. That indicates that money is awash, or the economy is awash with money. Monetarists believe in that, and therefore prices start to rise. Quantitative easing hasn't helped because pretty much we've paid for the money that the government have borrowed on COVID by printing money. Called quantitative easing, which is the posh name for it now, but it's just printing cash, and although it's all done digitally, isn't it? Because obviously the government prints the money, Bank of England prints the money, the Bank of England then gets like big plus signs in its bank account. It then buys the bonds the government's been issuing, because the bonds the government have been issuing haven't been gone to the marketplace, by the way. They've gone straight to the Bank of England, who bought them with printed money. Not a lot of people know that. And as I said before, the government effectively own the bonds that they issue. Hello, the government pays interest on the bonds at tiny percentages, but the government are paying it to the government. That's weird, isn't it? But that's how they're paying for coronavirus. That's how they're paying for all this money that they're spending, which is why they're quite happy to spend it at the moment. But it's causing inflation. Big issue that, as a mortgage advisor, you need to be aware of that. You need to be planning for that yourself. Inflation itself means a couple of things, really. Debt's good with inflation. Oddly enough, if you have debt, the value of debt comes down as inflation rises. So big mortgages in a few years' time become small mortgages. Think about that. The government have got this huge national debt now. The only way to get rid of a national debt, well, you can tax people more, but they're not doing that. Rishi didn't really increase taxes, did he? Okay, there's a bit of fiscal drag going on there by not increasing allowances, but the pure fact is the bloke hasn't increased tax. Therefore, we're not going to pay off the national debt by increasing taxes. Okay, the economy will boom again, but no, they'll get rid of the debt by inflationising it. Did it after the Second World War? We had a massive debt. The only way you get rid of it is inflationise the debt. So that a debt of 2 trillion now is a lot of money, but in 10 years' time, inflation makes it worth much, much less. Debt's good. Assets are also good when there's high inflation, because assets go up in price as well. So assets, gold, shares, houses. Hello, houses, mortgages, thinking debts here and a house. They kind of go together, don't they? So high inflation is good, as long as people can contain the high interest rates that go with it, because the government will, as inflation starts to rise, to get rid of that, which they still said they're going to keep to the 2%, aren't they? As inflation starts to rise above the 2, they'll look at ways of getting rid of that. And the first thing they do is they increase interest rates. Interest rates will start to trickle upwards. That'll give the banks and the lenders the excuse to put their rates up. They don't need an excuse anyway. They do it anyway, don't they? I mean, the bank base rate's 0.01% and mortgage rates are 4% now. They've been whacking that margin up, haven't they? Just trying to make some profit. Got to think about these things. That's how banks and building societies and lenders work. They like to make profit. They like to make margins. But as the bank rate goes up, the banks, the building societies, special lenders will increase their rates. So think about fixes for your clients. Think about a good old 5-year fix. Maybe even look at a 10-year fix. Be careful of redemption penalties though on those things, because people can't move that readily, can they? But interest rates will start to rise, and it'll make a big difference on mortgage payments. It will do. We've joked about stress testing at 6% in the past, but it may well be that interest rates again will hit the 6% mark. They did before the financial crash. People forget that. We had interest rates trickling up to 5, 6, 7% just before the crash. The crash happened and went right down. Back in the early 90s, we had interest rates of 12, 13, 14%. People forget that. They hurt those monthly payments. So be careful of that as well when you're talking to your clients. So that's CPI, really. And inflation, the old shopping basket. I love the old couscous. It's very Waitrose, isn't it? Enough of that.